Zoho Creator offers a simple drag and drop system where you can take your functions and use it really easily. And once you start going, you learn more how to use them more efficiently and make your applications even more advanced. If you want to start working with functions or your own code, we need to explain workflows. Workflows is the part of the Creator where all your customization works, where you process data and where you build custom workflows, of course. So let's take a look inside the workflow section. In the top navigation, you can see different parts, and I will explain you the most important ones. Let's start with form workflows. Form workflows is the place where you do majority of your programming. Each form workflow is associated with its own form, and you can see the list after you click and select your form. Then, as you have form workflows, you also have report workflows. Word of caution, if you don't see this part here, it's because you haven't built your first report workflow yet. What that means, report workflows are used for buttons, for custom buttons that are inside your report. Let me show you an example. So here you can see a report with custom button. If I click it, it shows just a message. Doesn't do much, but you can make them really advanced. This is the part that you manage in report workflows. So let's get back into the workflow section. These were reported workflows, and now let's move on to functions. In functions, you can build your own functions that are used, again, either from workflows, in schedules, or you can even associate them to your custom buttons. You can think of functions as a bit more complex code that is reusable. So for example, I use API to get data from a different system. I built the whole process of getting data through API inside the function, and anytime I want to access the data, I will simply run this function, and I don't have to do through the whole process and again anytime I need the data at different parts of my application. Last one that I want to explain to you is schedules. Schedules is really self-explanatory. You can set anything that will be done on either set time. I usually use them as repetitive functions. So I set something that has to be done once a day, for example, or once a week. Then I want to check some data or I want to collect some data, do an addition. I can do that inside schedules. So now that you see the different parts of the workflow, I will focus for the rest of the video on form workflows because, as I said, that's the place where you do like 90% of your programming. This is the form workflows window. And as I said before, you can select the form and you can see all the workflows associated with this form. Now, to create a new workflow, you simply click this button. And these are the things that you can select. So first of all, the form for which we are creating the workflow, this will be the tool form. Now I will explain the basic actions and events that allow us to trigger a workflow. So first, when a workflow is run, you can see created. That's when the form is first, when a record is first time created, edited. So when an existing record is being edited, created or edited, which is the unification of the previous two, and then deleted. So once we select any of these, it will show us the triggers that run the workflow. We can divide it into two different parts. I will start with the first three because created, edited, and created or edited show us the same options. If you select deleted, you have different options. I will explain that later. So now see when we can trigger the work form. There are basically three different parts where you can run this, and that's before the form is submitted, on-form submission. So that's when you hit the submit button and you want to check or validate data before you record it inside the database. And after form submission, that means once the record has been recorded in the database. So let's go one by one. Field rules are a little different. You do not enter any code inside this. It's simple clicks where you select actions that you want to have run. I have a separate video on this one. If you want to learn more about those, see the video. This one is basically allowing you to make your forms dynamic without writing a single line of code. It's really useful if you haven't tried it before, or even if you are writing your own codes and haven't considered field rules, there are certain advantages to this one over the code. Then let's move on. Load of the form. Usually on the load of the form, you would like to make sure that you display only fields that are relevant for the user at the moment, that you lock any fields that you don't want your user to change, and maybe to load some default data inside your form. So for example, I don't want to show some system fields that are not meant for the user. I hide them. I want to show some data that I want the user to see, but I don't want them to change it. So I enable or disable this field. Lastly, I can set some custom value. And for example, I want to enter a new member and I want to have a unique number for the member, but I have certain way how I want the number to look like. So I can build a simple function that will create this new member number, and it's recording inside the system without the user having to do anything. They can either see it or not. That's my choice. Then I have user input of a field. So this is a very useful one. I use this a lot. It basically reacts to any user input. So whenever the user selects any value or enters any value, I can react on that one. So for example, I have an order form. The user enters the number, the amount of the items they want to order, and right after they change the value, I run a simple function that calculates the total for the order. I can also show fields based on that. There are multiple ways of using this, but this is always a reaction on user input. The remaining two, addition of a row and deletion of a row, you may or may not see these. It depends on the fact whether your form has a subform. So these are just for the subform. So for example, you have the order form that I mentioned before. The user adds new product, and once they add the new product, that's the addition of a row. You can update the basic form, for example, the total for the whole order. Deletion of a row, again, if they delete one of the rows, you can run any action based on that. So this is these first are used for the form to make it again reactive, to make it dynamic, and to make it things you want to do while the user is working with the form. Then we are moving to on-form submission, which is for the validation. This is in general used as a control mechanism for you. So you may use these to check whether the data you received from the user is correct, whether it fits your expectations. And as an example, the user can order a maximum of 100 units. And in case they order 120, you can check that on the validation and let the user know that unfortunately they cannot order 120, only 100. It has some specific actions that you can do only here. One of them is to write an alert to the user, so they will get a red text that something is wrong. And you can also cancel submission. So if you're not happy with the data that's inside the form, you can cancel the submission so the user gets returned back to the original form with all the data filled in. They will get some alert notification what they need to do, and then they can update the form and after that resubmit it. And the last one is after form submission. This is once the form has been successfully submitted, it is now recorded inside the database, and you can do action based on this one. I sometimes use these for some summary functions. So anytime a new record is added, I want to update some grand total, or I want to add some values inside the last record that has been recorded. And I don't want to do this after each and every change inside the form. I only do it once the whole form is submitted and saved inside the database. Then I do my calculations, and I consider that to be more efficient. So this is for the create it or edit it. Now let's move on to delete it. As I said, this will give you different set of options. And basically, you can do, again, validations on record deletion, which is right before the record is deleted. Again, you can cancel the deletion. You can make sure that the user is following the rules that you have set for them. And then you have the successful record deletion, which is after the record has been deleted. Again, you may need to do some updates inside your system. So you will do this after it's successfully deleted. Now let's go one step back, and I will get back to the moment when the workflow has been run. These are all really self-explanatory, but I want to give you a little background into each of them. You will use this one if it's relevant only at the moment when the form is being submitted for the first time. So when your record is being created. As I said before, when I enter a new member, I need to generate the member number. It's only generated during the creation process. Once I edit the member, I don't want to change and touch it anymore. So that's where I set it for created only. The next one is edited. These are actions that are, again, relevant only when I edit existing record. So for example, now I know that my record has been created. I can set some conditions uh, which will allow me to decide which fields I want to show the user and which not. It's a different process from the created, because for when the form is totally blank, I don't know the data that the user will enter. So for that reason, I cannot use it there. But once the record is already there, I can work with it differently. That's where I use edit it. Then create it or edit it are functions or workflows that are universal. So as I said before, if I want to count the total for the order, it's not really important if it's being just created or if it's edited. It will work the same way, so it's easier for me to build it for create it or edit it. And then, as I said, delete it is a very different part because it gives us different options if we are deleting a record. Now let's see an example. I will create, for example, load of the form, sample load workflow, and let's see how it actually works. So now this is what I can do. I can do my first action, and this is the programming window. As I said in the introduction, you can really start by dragging and dropping. So for example, you want to hide or show any of your fields. Well, you simply take it on the left side and drag it there, right? You see hide, and then you enter a field. For example, I want to hide the field documents, and it's easy as this, right? I want to disable some field. So this is enable. I can change it to disable. And for example, tool type. I don't want the user to change the type of the tool. I can simply disable it. So even if you're not really a programmer, you can start with basic functions like this. Of course, I'm not going to pretend this is a universal solution. Once it gets more complicated, you will need to understand some of the basics behind it. But for the simple start, really, you can do this with almost knowing nothing about this. So now I can save my workflow, and this workflow has now been created here inside inside my application. And that's basically it. This is the introduction to the workflow section. This is how you can build your custom code, your custom functions. You can use this video always as a reference whenever you get back to workflows, and will give you a good foundation of how the whole system works. In the next videos, I will show you examples of workflows that are most commonly used in my application, and hopefully will give you some inspiration of how you can make your application more efficient or more powerful. Thank you for watching. Take care and see you with my next videos.